everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, and I thought I'd be able to weasel my way out of making this video by putting up a short. Well, here I am making this video. Let's talk about how Konami might have just killed retro Yu-Gi-Oh! So in case you're unfamiliar, a few days ago Konami released new guidance as to how to play their sanctioned Time Wizard events. If you're unfamiliar with Time Wizard, it's a mechanism by which OTSs and YCSs can sanction play of Yu-Gi-Oh! As it existed during its era. These events utilize the card pool, ban list, and importantly, game mechanics from those previous eras. It's been one of Konami and the community's biggest wins in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is why this update was strange. According to the new guidance, firstly, there won't be an Ultimate Time Wizard at the NAWCQ, which is disappointing to say the least. And secondly, Time Wizard formats will have to follow, quote, current game mechanics and current card text. In short, you'll have to comport to the newest master rule, the newest interpretation of rules like Ignition Effect Priority, and the current updated text available on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Database for cards that have received an errata. This fundamentally changes every top Time Wizard event into something wholly unrecognizable to the individuals that currently enjoy playing them. It's a baffling change with incredible repercussions, one that has the potential to doom one of Konami and the community's biggest wins in modern memory. And the weirdest part of all of it is, I don't think anyone really knows why they did it at all. Since the update, everyone online has been offering their take, from Ruxin to Alex to Joshua Schmidt. Even Gage uploaded. Do you know how bad you have to fuck up for Gage to click the upload button? I hope to give you a bit of background as to why this change is so insulting, address some of the comments made by people who agree with portions of the change, and give you some insight into what could be done better. So let's begin with a bit of history. In February of 2020, the global pandemic COVID-19 made its way to the United States. There were a couple of weeks of half-assed lockdowns, and a significant number of people got some time off of work. During that time, a lot of them rediscovered their old favorite hobbies, from sourdough starting to scrapbooking to Yu-Gi-Oh! Card gamery took off in a way that it hasn't since. Unfortunately for Yu-Gi-Oh!, that coincided with one of the worst formats of all time. Everyone was ready to use their old childhood cards, and then just logged on to get Adamancipator looped like 15 games in a row. As a result, there was a renewed interest in historic formats, Yu-Gi-Oh! Formats that were incredibly popular in their heyday, but these days had fallen by the wayside. GOAT format, which was already well known by the community, took off in a huge way, and the adoption of subsequent formats largely mirrored what Alex and I were doing on the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the same time everybody was inside trying to relearn their old childhood games, we were putting out a series in which we replayed a significant amount of old formats. Reaper format took off to a degree, but the stars really aligned when we reached Edison. Edison format, a then niche pick for best format of all time by retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Enthusiasts, was a smash hit. And as we settled in to explore the format historically, we found there was already a huge network of infrastructure ready to mobilize at a moment's notice to take advantage of its newfound popularity. The history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Moved on, but a lot of players didn't, and Edison format only became more popular as the years went by. These days, it is the primary way to play retro Yu-Gi-Oh!, and it's not difficult to see why. The format is incredibly open. There's dozens of decks with the capacity to take down a major tournament. The gameplay is super back and forth. It's exactly what you remember from your childhood. Enough big combos to look flashy, but not so much that you're sitting there on your phone waiting for your opponent to finish their Malice turn. Ed, and Edison, now E3 Yu-Gi-Oh!, hosts a ton of events in real life that fill up. 200, 300 person events with pricing far exceeding Konami's for people who just want to sling their old spells. Then this hit. The response to Konami's updated guidance was immediate.
But this is the end game of just making this format dwindle and wither.
It's really whack. I can't even begin to describe how much of a spit in the face this is to
who looked at this and was like, you know what? Let's make this a worse experience for everyone.
Oh,
and like
300 people at a side event? How can we encourage them to not show up?
Literally, like it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
After the release of this guidance, responses could be sorted into two large buckets of player preference. Firstly, the overwhelming majority of individuals who had no clue why this change had been made and resented it from stem to stern. And secondly, a group of individuals on the periphery of retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Individuals who currently like modern and the like, saying that it couldn't possibly be that bad, and honestly, was priority really worth keeping around anyway? I consider myself an individual who agrees with the former opinion. I cannot believe they did this, I don't understand why, and I think it will only have negative outcomes for the format at large. But I'd real quickly like to address the people that find themselves in the latter category, because I think it's very easy to take this position without a full understanding of what exactly it will entail. Buttressed by people who are very good at Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Joshua Schmidt, a lot of individuals think that this isn't that big of a change, and as a result, it doesn't make sense that so many people are so animated in their response. First of all, if you have this position and you're not in a position that you're regularly playing Edison, you might want to check yourself. There's a reason the individuals who are steeped in the format, people who play Edison all day, every day, and make content about it are universally against this change. The vast majority of people who play Edison format don't play Edison format because they preferred the old rules. By and large, they don't think ignition effect priority is a make or break mechanic for the format. Rather, they play Edison format because it's fun. Because the power level of every deck is close to every other deck, there are huge metagame shifts, even now 15 years after the format has concluded. In short, it's the balance of the thing that attracts individuals. There's a reason that Edison has endured, and Teledad, a format with all the same mechanics but a clear outlier in terms of power level, has not. And that's only possible because these cards were designed for a format that comported to the rules of 2010. Regardless of your opinion on priority, regardless of if you think Goyo is too strong a card, every card designed during that period was designed with that in mind. Yes, in the wake of these changes, there will be a rush to discover the best deck, but no, it's not going to take very long to figure out you can play aggro Blackwing with 3 apiece of the most frustrating floodgates of all time at a point when they weren't designed to work that way. I think it's also important to point out this is totally not future-proof. Let's say that you have decided to one-trick GOAT control until you're 90. To invest in the format, you've purchased Champion Pack Metamorphosis. And let's just go to TCG Player right now and check what that looks like. A Champion Pack Metamorphosis will run you somewhere in the realm of $250 for foreign copies and about $500 for an English copy. 2 years into your tenure as a GOAT format player, Konami decides that Metamorphosis is an iconic enough Yu-Gi-Oh card that they are going to errata it. They change some of the wording, they give it a hard once per turn, and they release it back into the TCG. Your Eternal format does not function the same anymore. That's something they can do at any point to any card they consider iconic enough to warrant an errata, and you are electing to play a format full of iconic cards. Which brings me to the ultimate question. Why'd they do this? I think there's 2 possible reasons. Firstly is the judge burden. Before we begin this section, I do want to give a quick shout out to the individuals who do unbelievable work at these events. The judge staff of every YCS I've ever gone to has been unbelievable. The individuals tapped for these jobs are frequently totally overworked, totally underpaid, but they're there because they love Yu-Gi-Oh! Someone may stroll up to the judge table and proclaim, "I intend to play a game of Android Psychic Shocker format circa 2003. Who on your staff knows last will rulings?" By consolidating the rulings, you don't have to engage with this really embarrassing situation where a judge is scrolling through Pojo on their iPhone as they try to figure out how to negotiate a board state they've never encountered. Or sometimes ones that occurred before they were born. However, I think this problem is checked by reality. I make a point at every single YCS I go to ask the judging staff how many Time Wizard events have fired and what formats are firing. This is because I'm always on the hunt for new opportunities to retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Without fail, it always breaks down like this. Some number of GOAT events, I'm talking anywhere from 2 to about 20. A shitload of Edison events, I'm talking anywhere from about 15 to 150, depending on the size of the YCS and how many individuals came to play retro, and maybe 1 or 2 Tengu. Everything else, without fail, is a one-off format played by individuals who brought 7 of their friends to play a specific format. While yes, theoretically, a judge does have to be responsible for the rulings in play every format ever, in reality, a couple of pages of information about common Edison and GOAT rulings would solve quite literally the entire problem. I don't want this to sound like I'm coming down hard on judging staff, because I'm not. If anything, I think it's a little paternalistic to assume that, given the right resources, they wouldn't be able to adequately explain how Raikou works. The second reason is Master Duel. Ignition effect priority doesn't exist in Master Duel, obviously. They do have the ability to blur out the extra monster zone and permit you to draw a card for your turn on your first turn, but that's about it. There's no errataed cards for things like Goyo Guardian that would need an errata to be playable in a historic format. The end goal of this is that there might be something like a retro ladder on Master Duel where people can play this weird Frankenstein version of Edison. Which honestly sounds really, really cool. Even without priority, even without errataed cards, I would jump at the chance to play Yu-Gi-Oh! That way. but why does it need to impact the paper product? Master Duel has never been a perfect one-to-one recreation of the TCG or the OCG. It can't be because of the way its release order works. What's more, Edison didn't exist anywhere outside TCG territories. When the OCG finally got all of the cards that we think of when we think of GOAT, Magician of Faith, Sangan, Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, they already had the gadgets out. It was a completely different format. Jesus, Tengu was a TCG exclusive. I just don't understand why Master Duel is not a recreation of the TCG, not a recreation of the OCG, previously has not been a recreation of any other retro format, but absolutely must be a totally faithful one-to-one recreation of a retro tournament scene that existed for one weekend in the TCG 15 years ago. Why can't they just approximate? They do for everything else. Hey, so it's the next day. And don't ask why I'm wearing the same clothes. It occurred to me last night as I was falling asleep that there's actually a third reason why they might want to make this change. And I can't really get it out of my head, and I don't want to add a little addendum in the comments, so I'm recording this part separately. So Edison has kind of historically been hard to monetize. Yes, people pay to enter tournaments at the local YCS and Ultimate Time Wizard level, but Yu-Gi-Oh's investors don't want tournament entry out of us. They want us buying packs consistently. Now, for the past couple of years, Konami's tried to capitalize on Edison's popularity by sneaking Edison reprints into high-value sets, maybe giving those players a reason to crack cardboard. More recently still, they've been making specific moves for retro Yu-Gi-Oh players, think the Retro Pack Rewave. But it's very possible the reason they implemented this is because they've decided that's not sufficient, that there is a prototypical perfect Yu-Gi-Oh consumer, and it's an individual that plays advanced and buys every new set in sequence. For this reason, I think it's very possible this change is made to shift the understanding of what Edison format is. From its own thing, a way to play Yu-Gi-Oh that many players enjoy exclusively without dipping their toes into any other format, to a learning tool or stepping stone to advanced. It's very possible that all that stuff I just said is completely wrong, and that they are absolutely aware that their number one market is lapsed Yugists. That they want those individuals to return to the fray with the cards that they played with as children, for a little bit, until they feel comfortable enough to start playing advanced. I'll admit this infers a lot about Konami's motivations, but this is the exact same thing that they did with Speed Duel, the exact same thing they were doing with Duel Links, and the stated goal of Rush Duel until it became big enough to be self-sustaining. That these alternate formats exist as a way to dip your toes in the kiddie pool or a momentary distraction on your eventual journey of ending up in the most profitable position for Konami possible, an advanced player, to the absolute detriment of Edison format. This is an end goal that necessarily requires siphoning off members of the community to play advanced. I don't know, I may just be out of my mind and thinking conspiratorially because it's late, but I had to get this out of my head before the video went up. In summary, this is a huge misstep, and I hope it's reversible. For me, it represents a fundamental misunderstanding from Konami about the purpose of retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Josh's video talks about how this makes Edison format more accessible to a Yugist who is playing Modern and wants to transfer those skills to a retro format. First off, I guess I'd say if you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, you've already signed your soul away to learn a bunch of complex bullshit. You think someone's going to memorize the fast effect timing chart and missing the timing, and then get turned off because the quick effect priority that still exists in the TCG also has an ignition version in a prior format? Be reasonable. But secondly, I don't think that player is the target audience for Edison. I think retro Yu-Gi-Oh attempts to capture a market that Konami has been increasingly making product for. You see it in the Retro Pack 1 and 2 reprints. You see it in how front and center Time Wizard events have been in recent years, in the write-ups that celebrate duelists who have been dominant for decades. They're attempting to target lapsed duelists. Individuals who played when they were kids or teenagers or young adults, put it down for some reason and never picked it back up. I cannot tell you how many of those people I have met at locals, YCSs, and Ultimate Time Wizard events who specifically showed because they heard their cards that they owned when they were 11 were once again playable, who were excited to translate the hundreds of hours they spent perfecting Gladiator Beasts into tournament success once again, and who were willing to purchase Konami product and pay for entry at events just for a shot at a giant card with a black rose on it. These changes are a slap in the face to those duelists. They aim to take individuals trying to recapture the nostalgia of historic formats and the successes they might have seen during those formats and say, too bad, you are playing at least to some degree a version of Modern, to the active detriment of the format you have been enjoying since. As a final note, I want to reiterate, this affects exactly paper Time Wizard events held with strict Konami scrutiny. The reason Edison became so popular is because of the grassroots community that built it. And those people, like E3 Yu-Gi-Oh, are already filling in the gap left by Konami in the wake of this announcement. A ton of individuals already purchased tickets and lodging to the NAWCQ under the impression there would be an Ultimate Time Wizard event held there. Now they're told not only will there not be one, it won't even play anything that resembles Retro Yu-Gi-Oh! In the literal hours since this announcement, Keegan has already figured out a mechanism by which he can host and commentate a 200-plus person Edison event in the same city on the same weekend so the people who bought tickets don't feel like they got rug pulled. Have you ever seen anyone that passionate about the TCG? Walk it back. Come on. Since starting the creation of this video and its publication, Konami has revealed that they don't even intend to enforce all modern rules. Like, there won't be an EMZ for Edison and you'll still draw on your first turn. So then I don't really understand the justification for any of this. Because if they're trying to make it easier for people who play Modern to play these, this is already a departure from the Modern rule set. Like, how much harder is it to say, okay, in addition to those two things that we specified, also cards that have received an errata use their old text and ignition effect priority applies? That's one more sentence. I don't know. I'm just baffled. I'm baffled. Bye-bye. 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 Hey, everybody. It's 2 in the morning. So we finished this video at about 10 p.m. And since then, something miraculous has happened. Konami has changed their mind. In response to the overwhelming outpouring of support for the old Edison rulings, they have updated their guidance for Time Wizard tournaments once again. Now, to be clear, they have not announced an Ultimate Time Wizard at the NAWCQ. That niche is still being filled by Keegan at the RBET that I think has like a couple of slots remaining at time of publication. But they are guaranteeing the Time Wizard events that are being hosted at the NAWCQ will follow the rulings and erratas of the time period. That's a differentiation between what they're calling time travel, an event that comports to a list found in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. At this moment, time travel has not been announced, but they've updated the guidance regardless, I think because people are calling for blood and Keegan's cutting into their profit margins. To my understanding, this is a best-case scenario. Individuals who are cautiously optimistic about the changes will have an opportunity to see if they work in real time. Individuals who wanted a retro format ladder on Master Duel to be available seem to be getting it. I don't know really what time travel is, but what else could it be, really? And thankfully, just like Master Duel is not a one-to-one analog to the TCG or the OCG, that format will not be a one-to-one analog to paper play of Edison, which is already a format with a flourishing community. Now, if this changed guidance sticks beyond the WCQ remains to be seen. They are being very cautious in this update, saying that the changes that they're announcing only apply to the WCQ. Very possible that they get past this event and decide that it's more trouble than it's worth anyway. I want to give a big shout out to all the individuals who did voice their disappointment with Konami. They would not have reversed course if people weren't whining. Big day for posting. And to those of you who said that the changes to Edison might be good after all, well, you'll get your opportunity to prove it with the time travel events. I hope the best for both of them. Kind of fucked up my upload schedule, but happy we got to end this one on a positive note. Good night.